In this video lesson, we'll learn about SOH-CAH-TOA. So this is about certain properties of right triangles. So this is actually split into several videos. And this is the first one, and we're going to learn about the SO of SOH-CAH-TOA. So SOH-CAH-TOA deals with how angles and side lengths of a right triangle relate. So let's say we know this angle in the right triangle. Of course, we always know the right angle is 90 degrees. Then the SO part of SOH-CAH-TOA stands for sine equals opposite over hypotenuse. So let me explain what that means. Opposite over hypotenuse. So the sine here, that's a special function. It's like a button on your calculator, kind of like a square root or taking a square, but of course it gives you different values. And the SO part, so you have sine equals opposite of hypotenuse, so that's why it's SOH. If you have this angle, and then that's the opposite side, and then we have the hypotenuse, then sine of that angle, so if you plug that angle into your calculator and you take the sine of it, that equals to the opposite side from the angle divided by the hypotenuse. So this is what the SO in SOH-CAH-TOA means. If we have an angle, we can take its sine, and then that will give us a number, and that number is equal to the opposite side from the angle divided by the hypotenuse. And as I said, sine is just something that's on your calculator. It's a special function that you can plug in numbers, you can plug in degrees, and it'll give you values. It'll give you numbers. So let's do a few examples. Here we're trying to find AB. So I mark AB as x, and notice it's the hypotenuse. So we know this angle. So let's say we take the sine of that angle, sine of 53 degrees. That equals to the opposite from that angle, the opposite side is 4. And then we divide by the hypotenuse. So that's sine equals opposite over hypotenuse. So now we just have to solve for x. So x times sine of 53 degrees equals 4. Divide by sine of 53 degrees on both sides. And of course, on the left it'll cancel out. We just get x equals 4 over sine of 53 degrees. And this is something that we can just plug into our calculator, because sine is a special button on the calculator. And we get 5.01. Now note, it's really important to check that your calculator is in degree mode. Sometimes it's in something else called radian mode. So your calculator should say deg or degree on it somewhere. If you still got the right answer like I did, then don't worry about it. But otherwise, you need to figure out your calculator settings. Moving on to the second problem. We want to find CB, so I'll mark that as x. And this time it's a leg of the right triangle. So there's 26 degrees that we know. So sine of 26 degrees is equal to the opposite, which is x, over the hypotenuse, which is 9. So now I just solve for x. Multiply by 9 on both sides. So I get x equals 9 sine of 26 degrees. And of course we just plug this into our calculator and we get 3.95 for x. So that's the answer. And again, since we're plugging in sine of 26 degrees, you want the calculator to be in degree mode. Alright, now let's move on to the final example. So this time we're actually looking for an angle, angle B. So I'm going to label it as x again. And if we take the sine of this angle, sine of x, then we get the opposite, which is 6, over the hypotenuse, which is 14. And this simplifies the 3 over 7. So now at this time, you can't really take sine of x, because x is unknown. So this is where I'll introduce the inverse sine, or as it's usually written in calculators, sine to the negative 1. It's a special button which undoes the sine. So kind of like a square root is for a square. So we apply sine inverse to both sides, and we get x equals sine inverse of 3 over 7. So again, sine inverse is kind of like a square root is for the square. If we had x squared, we'd take square roots on both sides. Since we have sine of x, we take sine inverse of both sides. And this gives us the angle of 25.38 degrees. And finally, you really have to make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. It's somewhere in your settings, and it'll probably say it on the front screen. For example, oftentimes it'll be written DEG or capital DEG. And the other most common option would be RAD or radian, and that is not what you want. You want degree mode. So I hope that this video lesson was helpful. Thank you for watching.